What is up, Hawk fans? I did already do a live for this video. I cut it short. I was planning on reading the comments, but the video didn't start the way that I expected. I did it on my phone rather than on my webcam. And so I was kind of discombobulated and I wasn't able to really get my complete thoughts together on the Iowa football game. So let's just dive right in. And like I said, we've already talked about some of this already. Did watch the live, that's fine. So let's start with the first half. Iowa in the first half came out strong. They scored on the first drive, the first series. Brendan Sullivan was making plays. He was making plays on the ground. He was doing well. Iowa hit a few passes through the air. And they kind of were utilizing quick passing schemes in order to open up the run. And especially in the first half, it really appeared to be working. Iowa, what did they have? 24 points or 21 points in the first half. They scored 14 points in the first quarter, 7 in the second. And they came into the game up 21-14. And now, mind you, I said in a Facebook post, even before this happened, I said that Brendan Sullivan, two things. One, I'm very concerned about his ability to stay healthy next year because most of his game is scrambling. That is most of his game. And if Tim Lester wants to have the offense that he needs to have next year in order to propel Iowa forward, he is absolutely going to have to work with Brendan Sullivan on his passing game, on his progressions, on his timing. And the second thing that I said was that Brendan Sullivan leaves the pocket way too quick. Now, that's kind of the rub, is when you are a run-first quarterback, the good run-first quarterbacks are very heady about when do they run, when do they take off immediately, and when do they have some patience and allow the passing scheme to develop. And I just don't think Brendan Sullivan is quite there. He's not terrible with it, but he's not quite there. He had some success in running early in the game. Missouri made some adjustments. They were more aware of his ability to escape the pocket. Their defense was, credit to them, whether it was the defensive coordinator, whether it was the players making the adjustment on the field, whatever the case may be, they were far more aware. And as the game went on, there was much less running room for Brendan Sullivan. There just was. And as the game went on, him leaving the pocket quicker and quicker was a problem. It was a major problem. In an offense like Tim Lester, you have to be able to stand in the pocket and allow plays to develop, okay? And you have to be able to see multiple reads. Now, in fairness to Brendan Sullivan, and I would say this to any Iowa quarterback, it is impossible for me to sit back as somebody who was not at the game and who did not have an aerial view. It is impossible for me to say whether he had open receivers here or there and he should have waited. I can't say, because usually we don't get that aerial view as observers through the television screen. So if I had to give Brendan Sullivan a rating I'll wait to get to that. Then in the third quarter, or it could have been late third quarter, Iowa has just a little bit of momentum. They get to Missouri's 47-yard line, And Brendan Sullivan on a 3rd and 2 leaves the pocket early again. He escapes out. He tries to force a pass instead of living to fight another day. He throws a terrible pass, gets intercepted. Missouri scores a field goal. They tie the game. And honestly, Missouri kind of out-Iowa'd Iowa. Honestly, they were patient. They waited for Iowa to give them a turnover, got it, and they were able to win the game off of 2 field goals. So Brendan Sullivan went 14 of 18, 131 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. Those are not terrible stats. And to tell you the truth, given the quality opponent that Missouri is, even though they didn't have all their best players, which neither did Iowa, okay, they are a top 25 team. This is probably the best top 20. This is probably the best performance Iowa has had against a top 25 team in a long time. Now, it's hard to gauge that when both teams are not at their full strength. But just looking at it in a vacuum, this is Iowa's best performance against a top 25 team in a long time. A team that they were playing that was currently ranked in the top 25. Not a team like Iowa State or, something like that where they end up being in the top 25. Not something like that, okay? But Iowa choked this game away. They were outcoached in the second half, and they made the plays needed to win. I mean, that's all there is to it. The other thing, make no mistake, I am not blaming this loss on Brendan Sullivan. I would say a majority of the time, compared to what we have had from Iowa quarterbacks for the past couple of years, I would take this performance a majority of the time than what we have seen in the past from Iowa quarterbacks. Okay, he had 6 yards rushing, but he did run the ball 12 times. Again, a lot of it there was nothing there. He didn't make it count, and that's the thing that he's going to have to learn is when to just be patient, and if you get sacked, you get sacked, and if you're going to escape, to buy time versus and do it advantageously to give time to your receivers to get open versus just taking off early just to take off, and then if there's a guy stunting there or spying, you stop and then you start looking around. He's got to get better at that. He's got to get more skilled at his decision making for the tuck and run versus scrambling to make plays, to free up passing lanes, whatever the case may be. But Iowa did not lose this game solely because of Brendan Sullivan. Okay? Any Iowa fan who does not admit that Iowa's defense played like dog S today is lying. Okay? Iowa turned the ball over 1 time, and it wasn't the worst turnover in the world. It wasn't the best. Okay, it's not like they turned it over at at Missouri's own 3-yard line. Okay, it wasn't the best, but it could have been a lot worse. Iowa's defense gave up 27 points today. It was not sufficient. And Phil Parker's defense this year, they gave up 376 yards. I thought it was more. I mean, it seemed like Missouri was able to do anything and everything they wanted defensively. I saw very little blitz in my live video. I saw somebody commenting that they didn't see any blitz or anything like that. Here, let me do something. Thanks. And that's true. They didn't really blitz. I mean, I didn't see Iowa blitz hardly at all this game. And I was talking pregame about how I haven't seen Iowa for a long time do the Raider package, and do that. I haven't really seen it for a long time. Iowa's defense this year in the back end was not good enough. And that is probably the thing that most people who are Iowa fans or people who pay attention to Iowa football got wrong, was Iowa's back end. They really missed Jermari Harris this year, but even with Jermari Harris, Iowa was at times below average on the back end, and in a defense that, like what Phil Parker runs, you have to have disciplined, very good tacklers, very heady back-end players. Xavier Wampa got burned multiple times today. He had a stupid roughing the quarterback penalty. And this is not the first game that he got burned this season. Okay, he's gotten burned multiple games. Iowa was very, very average on the back end, if not at times below average on the back end this year. And that includes Sebastian Castro, that includes at times Jermari Harris. Iowa was not where they needed to be. Now, the good news is that these guys will get a year older, and Iowa does have a lot of guys returning next year. But they also lose a lot of guys too, and I don't know if it's something that's wrong with Phil Parker's scheme that needs adjustment. If we're just seeing like the beginning floodgates in a failing system, I don't know. Because if you look at the stats, Iowa's defense overall was still great to elite this year. Okay, it wasn't the best defense, and it wasn't as good. It wasn't the best defense in the Phil Parker era, and it was not overall elite per se, but at times it was elite, and overall I would say it was a great defense. But there were some issues with Iowa's defense this year, and a lot of it had to do with the back end. Anytime Iowa played a team with at least one above average receiver, Iowa State, Penn State, Ohio State, anytime they played a team with an above average to good to great to elite wide receiver, at least one, they got torched. Now, in fairness, a lot of teams got torched by those players. But if you're an elite defense, you find a way to contain that player. You find somebody, a scheme, whatever the case may be, to stop that player. And Iowa's defense got worked this year. At times, okay, not consistently. The stats don't bear that out. Iowa's defense was still one of the top Big Ten defenses, one of the top 20 to 25 defenses overall in the entire country. What were they? Top 15 in scoring defense. Let me just pull up the stats. I did it in my pregame video. 2024 NCAA college football team stats. So, now, the good, okay? The good is I'm very much totally good with the running back room that we have going into next year. Can Iowa add, one other person? Maybe. But think about this, guys. LaShawn Williams had multiple Power 4 offers from other schools. Ended up he was committed to where was he committed? Let's see if I can hold on a second, guys. Committed to Memphis, and then he flipped to Kansas. So will Iowa be able to find a running back that is better than LaShawn Williams in the transfer portal? Probably not. Would they be able to find a running back that's at the same level or close to the same level as LaShawn Williams? Maybe. It depends on, if he's a junior, senior, if he's a freshman or sophomore, and maybe was in a bad situation or something like that. Point is it's going to be hard. I think the only running back that Iowa could find is maybe a more veteran running back that is okay not being the lead guy, but he's also not going to be like an elite running back, or a younger guy that is okay coming into a room and competing for a spot. That does have some upside. But as for this game, Kamari Moulton looked good. Josiah Patterson looked good. Iowa had 166 yards on the ground rushing the ball. And overall, they were fairly balanced. I mean, 131 passing yards. They need to get that number closer to 150. There's no reason Iowa shouldn't be able to minimum have 150 passing yards a game. Yeah. So I'm good with Kamari Moulton and Josiah Patterson. I mean, Kamari Moulton had 96 yards, 6.9 yards a carry, 1 touchdown. Josiah Patterson had 9 carries, 74 yards. Yes, there were some big holes. Yes, Iowa's offensive line has been one of the best in the country, but it's going to be good again next year based on who's coming back. I like these two guys, plus I like the younger guys that are coming up. Iowa has other areas that they need to improve. If there's an option that's there, I'm not against it, but overall, this is not one of the rooms that Iowa needs to fix. Okay, they have plenty of talent. They have multiple options. They should be fine. So scoring defense. Iowa finished 12th, giving up 18.6 points per game. In 2023, they gave up 14.8 and were 4th behind Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State. So they took a step back this year. They did. You know, I mean, it's still elite. It is. I mean, any stat that you're top 15, especially a major stat like scoring defense, it's good. But Iowa did definitely struggle in the pass game. They did. Let's look up passing defense. Let's see where Iowa comes in at. 38th. They gave up 201.9 yards per game passing compared to last year. They gave up 170.7. Okay, so Phil Parker has to fix that. I think some of it might have been because he was injured and was away from Iowa football. You know, and again, some of the guys have not developed like I thought. You know, Xavier Wampa is the main one. I thought that this was going to be a massive breakout year for him, and it hasn't. It hasn't. Xavier Wampa struggles in coverage. He does. So Brendan Sullivan, just to wrap this up, the grade that I would give him, I'd give him a C+. The turnover was bad. I might even be willing to go B- because he did make some plays here or there. I'd say C+, B-, somewhere in between there. You know, there were some good things. Just to wrap up this year, guys, this team should have been better than an 8-win team. They had the talent to be better than an 8-win team, but Iowa took steps forward in some regards, but they also took some steps back. Okay? You know, and Missouri is a decent team with a decent program. There's a reason why they are a 10-win team this year. You know, there's a reason why. Missouri, 25 first downs. Iowa, 17. Time of possession, Iowa, 28. Missouri, 31. Iowa lost the turnover battle. There were 46 yards of penalty for Iowa and 60 for Missouri. So that's two things that I wanted to talk about. So, the penalties, okay? I am a high-level sports official myself for multiple sports, okay? high school and college level, not Division I yet or Division II, but still college. Okay, most officials will never do college. It's very difficult and takes a lot of time. I know a lot of you guys, and I used to think this myself, think that officiating might be easy, but it's not. It takes a lot of hard work and a lot of effort and a lot of cojones to do that job. When it comes to officiating, there are what's known as points of emphasis that are put down from the top down. Okay? And there's a good chance, let me see if I can get this fixed. There's a good chance that the NCAA and whoever the assigners are for the Big Ten and the SEC or whatever probably mostly came from the NCAA, because what you guys have to realize is the NCAA does not assign the games. Each conference, the Big Ten, the Big 12, the SEC, all have assigners. Sometimes they're the same assigners, but just to make it easy, they all have different assigners, and the assigner for each individual sport assigns officials. They give officials contracts, they hire them, and they assign them for the conference. For games like this, it's probably a mixture of they probably go with a non-Big Ten, non-SEC crew as to not have bias. Okay? Or they might do a mixture of Big Ten and SEC officials. And there's a good chance that one of the points of emphasis that at the conclusion of the regular season, one of the points of emphasis was that the quarterbacks and, sliding and late hits and things like that need to stop. What does points of emphasis mean? It means something that officials will pay an abnormal amount of attention to when they otherwise would not pay as much attention to. Not that they wouldn't pay any attention. And what you guys need to realize is when it comes to officiating is every rule for every sport is applied more or less at different points in the sport's history, okay? Now, there are some rules that are applied no matter what, like out of bounds or whatever, but when it comes to like subjective things or semi-subjective things like contact and bang bang plays and some of these more in between the line type things, every official is different, and some officials are more by the book for that specific rule than others. Okay, now when it comes to a point of emphasis, there's no getting around it. Every single official has to pay close attention and go by the emphasis and the addition and the emphasis that the assigners and the NCAA wants them to do. Okay, that's how that works. So if I had to guess, going into this game and other bowl games, a point of emphasis was late hits. That's why you saw so many of these calls. The call on the illegal formation on the punt where Iowa pinned them inside the 5, that's one of those subjective ones. Some officials probably would have passed on that, okay? That official didn't. I didn't have a good look at it because I was at the gym and I just I saw it on the TV, but I couldn't hear what was being said. By the letter of the law, it may have been the correct call. I'm not sure. I kind of understood what they were saying. Something like he has to be on the line if he's going to be a gunner and get down, or he left too early before the snap. I'm not sure exactly what was said. I would have to go back and see. But again, that's one of those somewhat subjective ones, and it just is what it is, you know. Obviously, Kirk Ferentz did not like the call, but there were some calls that went against Missouri that Missouri's coach didn't like. I thought all the late hit calls were accurate, with the exception of maybe one or two that were kind of in between that I think win against Iowa or win against Missouri, but by and large, the officials got it correct. So, and a lot of people don't know that when it comes to snapping and what is considered being on the line of scrimmage in high school football, it is the furthest point of the center's rear that is considered being. So, in other words, if the center's head is like right here and his rear is right here, all the other guys can be right here, and all that has to happen is any point of their body just has to break that rear by just a little bit, and they're good. So a lot of people don't know that rule, and you know, in sports they're like, he's not on the line, he's not on. No, and that's why you see kind of like it kind of being like a V where it tapers off rather than it being like a straight line. It's more like this. So anyways, that is pretty much it, guys. You know, Iowa was not able to get turnovers. That definitely hurt them. Credit to Missouri. They have a veteran quarterback who has played in, you know, I think they were saying the most starts as a Missouri quarterback in the Missouri history or something like that. Is he an NFL quarterback? I'm not sure. I haven't really seen him too much outside of this game. But I will say, I mean, he pretty much got whatever he wanted against the Iowa Hawkeyes. I mean, whatever he wanted to do, he got. He had 2,248 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 2 INTs. And Iowa allowed him to have 2 more. So, you know, let's see if they've already added it. Yeah, they have. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Wait. 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. So he'll have 11 touchdowns this year. 11 touchdowns, 2 INTs, and he's got a QBR of 74.5, which is top 25 in the country. So, you know, he's not a bad quarterback. He's not a bad quarterback. I would say he is an above average quarterback. Just to wrap this up, was this season a failure? Yes, it was. Okay, this season was a letdown. Iowa had aspirations of the college football playoff. Not only did they not get there, they weren't even really close. If you look at the win-loss. If you look at how close the games were, you know, the Iowa State game, this game, the UCLA game, Iowa should have done better against Michigan State. It could have gone the other way. But that is usually the case for Iowa football. This year was kind of an anomaly in that the games that Iowa did win, most of the time they dominated, you know. But, you know, the 10-win seasons that Iowa has had in the last 5 years, they have won by the slimmest of margins. That is usually how Iowa wins football games. You know, Iowa's offense today was not terrible, but it really died out in the second half. And Iowa not being able to get to 300 yards of total yards, you know, if I had to give Iowa, and you take into account Caden Wedgson, you know, 7 of the points that Iowa scored came on a Caden Wedgson. So Iowa, let's see, 18, 19, 20. So it's 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So 17 points came from Iowa's offense, right? 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Yeah, 17. So I'd give Iowa's offense a C+. You know, in the first half, it was looking good. I was pleasantly surprised at the aggressiveness, but it trailed off. And, Iowa just could not really get much going through the air. I mean, I know he finished 14 of 18, but there were a lot of plays that he tucked it and ran that went for nothing. And, yeah. I mean, he did spread it around. Jarriett Bowie, 3 for 30. Jacob Gill, 2 for 29. Addison Ostrenga, 1 for 29. Terrell Washington, 3 for 26. Wedgton, 2 for 13. But, yeah. So, looking to next year, the good news is that all these wide receivers will be back. And I know that's kind of laughable to some. It's like, oh, great, we get all these bad... But in theory, they should progress, they should develop, and they should get better. Okay? I cannot think of a year outside of like the Ihmir Smith-Marsette, Brandon Smith, Tyrone Tracy. Let's see. What year was that? Let me see. Let me look up what year that was. Or at least coming into that year. Nico Reganey, Tyrone Tracy, Ihmir Smith-Marsette, Brandon Smith. Now, it was mainly Ihmir Smith-Marsette and Brandon Smith. This was the Koof year where Iowa was a top 25 team. And I think they started out 0-2, and they finished 6-2. Let's see. The Maryland game was canceled, Minnesota game, and then they lost to Purdue, they lost to Northwestern, and then they won the remaining of their games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then the game against Michigan was canceled. I can't remember if that was the... I cannot remember if that was the Big Ten for the Big Ten championship game. I don't think it was. I think that was just a regular season game. So Iowa's wide receiver room has not been this healthy with bodies and returning production in a long time. So we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see what the development is. We'll see who Iowa's able to get in the transfer portal. But there's a lot of things that Iowa needs to fix. And while this season was not as bad as some, I'm looking at Wisconsin, and Iowa still did do better than a lot of the Big Ten West formerly Big Ten West counterparts. Man, I mean, the talent on this Iowa team, maybe it wasn't as good as we thought. Maybe it wasn't as good. Illinois 9-3. They still have their game coming up. Michigan 7-5, Minnesota 7-5. Maybe they still have games coming up. Nebraska 7-6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Let's see, who did Nebraska play? They beat Boston College 20-15. Obviously, Iowa playing Missouri is a step up. But, we want to be competing with Oregon, Penn State, and Ohio State. That's the truth of the matter, Can Iowa compete with those guys next year? Yes. But they need to start by getting this defense back to where it was. Being the best or top 3 defenses in the Big Ten. Not top 5, top 3. There's a big difference between top 5, top 6, and top 3. So we'll just have to see. But, this season, again, it could have been worse, but I still would not consider this a successful season. I'm just kind of, doing my overall thoughts here, guys, as the season is done. But there were some things that were good here or there. Maybe I'll do a separate video on that. I've already done a video on that. I did it as soon as the regular season dropped. Iowa's run game improved. I do like the direction Tim Lester is going, but we need to find a quarterback. We need to get better in our passing routes, in our passing game, and Iowa needs to get better defensively. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. I can talk on this all day. Thank you guys so much for supporting this channel all year long. We're so close to 2,000 subscribers. Unfortunately, Iowa did not get the win. We have to officially turn our attention to next year, see what Iowa can do, see where Iowa can improve. There's a lot of talent on this team, and you as Iowa fans know as well as I. Oddly enough, and sadly, it's the Iowa teams that have the least amount of preseason notoriety that tend to do the best. It's the teams with the most that failed to meet expectations. All right, guys, I will see you guys next time. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, let me know what you guys think. And DBAP, don't be a pussy willow. In facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. I love you, Hawk fans. See you guys next time. Bye-bye. Go Hawks.